Welcome, everybody. All right, we're talking about resentment in relationships. You know, not all couples can pinpoint a trigger for a spiral of a relationship resentment, but there's a lot of research out there that's shown that resentment is often the response to a wrong or something perceived as punitive or humiliating. So what resentment looks like is how the human brain operates is a person, let's say, decides that their spouse is a narcissist. So now that I've decided you're a narcissist because you've done this, they start collecting evidence that you're a narcissist. And then what they decide, like drawing a dark dot in the middle of a white page, they're going to focus on the dark dot. And the dark dot is you're a narcissist. And everything I hear that you say and everything you do is to validate the book that I'm starting to write about you, and I have been writing about you to prove what a narcissist you really are. And so everything we do, I'm pulling communication away to define that I am correct and I am the God of the universe that has determined that you're a narcissist and I'm not. And I am going to refer to you as a narcissist every time I determine that a behavior or a thing you've said makes you a narcissist. And I'm going to look at you through the book I wrote. See, 20 years ago, you did blah, blah, blah. The other day, you said blah, blah, blah. Look, you did this, you did that. Look what you just did here. You're just a narcissist. You don't care about anybody. All you care about is yourself. All you care about is your feelings. Blah, 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 blah. And that's what people do because they like to think they are God. And so they put themselves in the role to define other human beings through the pin dot in the middle of the white page. And that's how they feel comfortable. Because if I can classify you and turn you into a black and white object, a diagnosis, a something that is less than human, it makes me feel better. And that's how people operate. And they do that in marriage all day long, every day of their lives. They do that in their relationship with their family, with their children, with their friends, with everybody around them, with their workforce. They do that to make themselves feel better, to make them feel less flawed than the other human beings, even though they're just as, if not more flawed than the other human beings. But they don't want to look at that. What they want to look at is everybody else and all of their problems. They don't want to figure out how to adapt. They don't want to figure out how to understand. They don't want to figure out how to have compassion, how to understand the hurt that drives the behavior that they keep identifying repeatedly. All they care about is judging it and nagging other people or treating other people as if they are the label that they have created. So, every time a human being rubs up against the book that they've written about them, they're going to throw the book at them. Oh, you're this, blah, blah, blah. You're a control freak. Look, you've done this. See, I'm so right about you. I know you better than you know yourself. I am the greatest thing on the planet because I've identified your flaw and I can make a case, 20 years of a case about your flaw. Boy, that's a great human being. That's a wonderful human being to live with. And it's miserable being on the other side of it because you know what you're being looked through. You know what they're doing. They're defining you as a black and white thing, even though there is 99.9% of your transactions with the rest of the human race and this human being that are being thrown out completely. It's very frustrating to be categorized. However, people love to do that, especially in marriage. And so what they do is they resent the hell out of each other. And then the first thing that happens is they blow up their bedroom and stop having sex. The second thing is they start arguing and they start filtering everything they say to each other because they can't trust each other emotionally. And then they start doing little passive aggressive things like spending money or doing things or getting addicted to pornography or drinking or having, best friends instead of the best friend in the relationship. They start replacing each other in every possible place. They start addicting themselves to their job because their asshole that they married, all they can do is think of them as the thing they resent. And what the truth is that the thing that people often resent in others is the thing that they hate about themselves. Wow. Wow. The thing that they resent in others is often the thing that they hate about themselves. Now, if people were really accountable, which they never will be, but if they really were accountable and really wanted to be healthy, they would take a look inside themselves and resent the hell out of themselves instead of everybody else and fix it. Since they want other people to fix it, why don't they fix themselves? But they can never do that because they're too busy blaming. They love to blame. That's how people are, especially in this day and age when we have social media and all kinds of lack of accountability and people with no character whatsoever. We are reinforcing the image of people never taking responsibility and pointing the finger at everybody else and living like a victim. Wouldn't it be wonderful if people actually looked at themselves and go, what am I doing that is inviting you to treat me like you treat me? And what signal can I send out that would be different, that would invite a better part of you to me? If we understood that the signals we send out are feeding what we are getting back that we don't like, change the signals, change the attitude, change your resentment, put it aside and put out signals that invite what you want back from that human being because there's good and bad in all of us. However, some people are so stupid that they will destroy their children's lives, destroy their own lives repeatedly, and hire a nice divorce attorney. And then you get to discover who you marry when you divorce them, because that's really who you marry, is what you get when you divorce them. That's the real person. That's the real Monty. And so the deal is they'll blow up their life instead of facing their own resentment for themselves. They'd rather make the other person out to be that bad person. And then they sit in a courtroom with 45 other couples doing the same thing to make that person out to be the horrible thing and spending the 100, 200, 300, half a million, 2 million, 100 million to prove what a jerk you really are, when really what they've done is prove what a jerk they are and destroy their children's lives in the process. Really good. That's a good human being. Unfortunately, that's what a lot of our population is made up of. Mentally unstable, irresponsible idiots who sit around wasting their life resenting others for the very things that they do themselves. So, what we have to think about is the heart of resentment. It's the lack of communication. And it springs from hurt or anger or a sense of injustice that's not directly and clearly expressed. And what it really comes down to is everything that we resent in this life comes from a core hurt that happens usually in our childhood or sometime early in our life where we were desperately hurt and we feel like our life has been out of our control. Well, the deal is you need to own your own life and you need to set boundaries and you need to stop just following along as you're the victim. You need to start making choices and understand that that's how you teach people how to love you. Resentment can reveal itself in angry words and snipey comments and not talking to each other in 2, 3 days like little children that are married, little children people who take on accountability and breed and have children and teach them how to be assholes. the loss of sexual desire, rumination about a real or perceived injustice, like there is justice or fairness in life. Fair is a place where they judge pigs. There is no such thing as fair or just in this life. Look around. Go to court. Go see the judge with the angry transvestite activist judge and see what they're going to do as far as determining your future. Come on, guys. It's human beings, and they're not fair. They're not just. They're selfish pigs who accumulate evidence and then label you. That's justice or fairness in this life. Harboring unexpressed angry thoughts about someone, even giving up on a relationship. It is a corrosive process that can erode love and cause both partners to lose their relationship and each other. That is because people who can afford to be nasty, resentful people who put their partner into a label or multiple labels lack the ability to commit. Marriage is will or won't. A real relationship is a will or won't. It's not a try. And people that are resentful only try to be in a relationship. They will not be in a relationship. They send out victim signals and then they get behavior that does not respect them. And if you're going to do that, because every narcissist needs a codependent, if you're going to be a codependent person, you've invited the narcissist. Take accountability for it, own it, change it, move them along if they're narcissists, because narcissists have personality disorders. They don't even know they're narcissists, they think they're God on the earth. But if you're going to be with somebody like that, take accountability for it because you're inviting it. If you reflect on and identify the triggers of your resentment, this doesn't mean continued rumination about the reflection on what is causing you to resent your partner. How and why do you feel diminished and betrayed? Could there be a gap between their intent and your perception? Because people who look for forgiveness do not sit around and beat on the horrible thing you did. If you are a semi-intelligent human being of some kindness and some culture and some caring, you're going to look out for what drove you to make the decision so I can learn how to forgive you. How did you arrive at this? What made you think that this was a cool thing to do? Now I'm studying your intentions rather than going to, I can't believe you did this to me. You did this to me. You. That is unintellectual, idiot people with no emotional intelligence whatsoever. They beat on the wall and call themselves a victim and have no intellect or spirit or any sense of goodness. And all they do is sit around and beat on the bad thing and act like they're God instead of shut the hell up, study what the intention was, how a person arrived at a decision, so that you can have the grounds for forgiveness. But people are such turds nowadays, and people are so judgmental, especially in our media and our politics, that that's what they think they need to do. Just beat on the wall and beat on the wall. If you want to be that way, go ahead. But it's a real waste of your life, and you're never going to be able to have relationships of any sustainability because you're a judgmental turd. All right, we're going to take a quick break and come back. Welcome back, everybody. We're talking about resentment in relationships. And when we feel we've been mistreated, betrayed, wronged, unintentional or otherwise, those actions can lead us to develop resentment for the people who've harmed us. And when we allow these complex emotions of anger and bitterness and disappointment and failure to fester weeks, months, days, even decades, it really affects a relationship. As a matter of fact, it's a horrible thing to have to be with a resentful idiot in your relationship. Somebody who actually goes through the vows of marriage and the covenant and goes to church with you every week, does all the things to act like they are the most responsible, wonderful human being, and they carry resentment in a relationship. It is such a burden to be with these turds, but there are just the vast majority of what's out there because people love to be victims. If you want to be married, if you want to be in a relationship, you need to understand it's the most humble place on the earth, and you have to learn how to work together and understand that this is meaningful to you, this is not meaningful to me, and that's what we're arguing about. I need to understand what's meaningful to you, you need to understand what's meaningful to me, and we need to compromise. What it means is people who resent have terrible boundaries and take no accountability for it. Boundaries are very simple. They're transactions. They're not emotional events. Conflicts are transactions. Yes, I can do this, but I can't do that. When you do this behavior, it really affects me this way. I wish you would stop doing that. Otherwise, I really need to find a different way to communicate with you because I need to find a way to make it better because this is not working. That's boundaries. It's not a Broadway performance. However, people make it into. So if you have crappy boundaries and the inability to have boundaries, you're probably going to be a resentful person and you're probably going to be passive aggressive, do your little silence treatment or no sex for the, next 5 years, whatever stupid thing you've decided in your childhood demeanor. But resentment doesn't just emerge within intimate relationships either. Resentment can surface in the relationships you have with the people at work, at school, members of your family, with anyone you interact with in your life. So, how do you recognize it in its earliest stages before it gets too tough to handle? It can be described as resentment as a complex, multi-layered emotional reaction to being mistreated or wronged by another person. Once again, it's a perception. It's not a truth, it's a perception. It's a situation or series of circumstances. Often resentment feels like a merging of anger, bitterness, disgust, disappointment, and disapproval towards a person or events that lead you to that perspective because you have been writing a novel about this person and this behavior that they have for your whole life, and you've never done a damn thing about it in yourself. And that means maybe break up with them because they're a toxic turd. But of course, if you're codependent, you got to breed with them first. There's no specific cause of resentment, but it can be triggered by several things. Being taken advantage of by others. Whose fault is that? Yours. Being put down, dismissed, or ignored. Whose fault is that? Yours. Feeling inadequate, overlooked, or unheard. Well, outsiders have decided to be outsiders. They didn't get put as outsiders on purpose. They decided they would be outsiders and they kept sending the signals that they want to be an outsider all the time because of their fear of rejection. Having unrealistic expectations of others and the world around you. Maintaining relationships with people who insist their needs are more important than your own. Well, if you're going to be around people like that, whose fault is that? It's yours. Having interactions with people who undermine your authority. Okay? If you're going to be around people who are terrible listeners, they're not good at respect. So why be around them? Or ask them if you can't listen and we can't communicate, we really can't have much of a relationship. So What are we going to do about it if we're committed to this relationship? Or if we're not committed to the relationship, go get in your car and find a life that doesn't include me. Expressing the precise causes of resentment can be challenging because it's not always straightforward. It can involve a multitude of factors. The complexity arises due to the complex nature of human behavior and relationships. Resentment can be directed towards others. It might be intertwined with feelings of self-directed anger, creating a nuanced emotional landscape, that's a lot of words, that necessitates a self-reflection. If you've got resentment, the first place you have to go is within yourself to go, where is the core hurt that this is affecting? And why am I looking at this as a victim? And how can I not be a victim? And how can I do a better job creating boundaries that does not allow you to treat me like you treat me? There's signs of resentment, anger, hostility, hate, bitterness, discomfort, distaste, disgust. If you really want to talk about anger management, so that starts with irritability, it goes to anger, and then it moves on into rage. Now, anger and rage and irritability all come back to two very common roots. The first one is disrespect, and that means I do not feel like you are hearing me. I don't feel like I have a voice. Now, if I feel like you're going to disrespect me and I have no voice and I'm stuck with you as a married turd that I have to deal with every day of my life, I'm going to have to figure out how to get you to listen to me. Now, most people do this. You're just a jerk, or you're a narcissist, or you're this, or you are blah, blah, blah. And they start throwing out stupid, childish words to get your attention. The other thing is, if you want them to really listen, you have to command them to listen, and that is listen. If you can't hear me, and if I am not somebody you can listen to, we are going to have to change the dynamic of this relationship. I don't know what that consequence is going to look like, but it ain't going to be the one that we have right now. So we either are going to hear each other and respond, or we're not. It's a transaction, guys. It's not an emotional event. And that's what you've got to understand. You have the right to communicate how someone speaks to you. If you want me to hear you, I need you to communicate this way. This is the language I speak. I don't speak the language you speak, which has all this Broadway production in it. I don't like Broadway productions. I like boring, vanilla, straightforward, honest people who don't have to do Broadway productions. So if you want me to communicate, you got to meet me at that level. You see, the other root that causes rage, disrespect, is fear. Fear is the other element of anger. And that means that I'm in a fight or flight mode. So if fear is a part of my life, because a lot of people just live in fear all day long, they have their little hypothesis about, well, you're going to do this to me and you're going to do that. Oh, they're never going to do their homework. Oh, they're really out there sleeping with somebody instead of at their friend's house, or oh, they're doing this or doing that. You living in these godlike hypotheses. These people are crazy. They waste so much time, waste so much time. If you want to have a relationship with a human being of some form of peace, you have to give them, I'm going to have faith in you until I don't trust you. Now, if I find out that on my little GPS tracker that I have, that you happen to be over at your girlfriend's house instead of actually at the place you said you're going to be, I no longer can have faith in you, because faith is a bridge to trust. If you're going to have any sustainable relationship, you have to understand that it's not based on love. You can love someone and not trust them. But when you trust someone, the love grows. So what that means is If you don't value trust, you're going to have a hard time sustaining any relationship in this life. So, what trust means is, look, I know in this relationship I'm going to violate your trust in some way, emotionally, financially, physically. Something's going to happen. When I do that, I am going to ask you to have faith in me so that you can get back to trust eventually. I don't know when you'll get to trust, but the bridge is faith. And that's what you have to continue to walk on if you're going to have a sustainable relationship where the love grows. If you're a jerk, if you're a liar, even a white liar, you're not a person that can be trusted. Therefore, you're not a person that can have love that grows. So you're just a lonely piece of crap sitting in a corner with a penis or a vagina that wants something deeper that you have to give. When you suppress emotions over time, it can lead to catastrophic thinking and resentment, which can have significant negative impacts on your mental and physical health. In the short term, suppressing feelings may even feel like a way of coping. However, in the long run, pushing down and ignoring your emotions can be a slippery slope to mental health issues like PTSD, trauma, depression, anxiety, OCD. Why? Because it's like a teapot that's heating up. And once it hits the boiling point, you're going to rage. And when you rage, everybody's going to think you're nuts. You need a therapist. When actually you're just communicating something that you've been storing up over a long period of time with multiple events, and you've finally blown up because you stored it and stored it and stored it and stored it. So people that are passive aggressive become psychotic when they express themselves, and everybody looks at them as a crazy person. Nobody cares what they have to say. All they want to do is get them a therapist or say, I can't live with you because you scare me. And usually they're a pretty passive person putting up with bullshit that they should not put up with because they have no boundaries. People that are passive aggressive don't know how to do. Here's what I can put up with, but here's what I can't put up with. They have no boundaries. They're weasels. They're diplomats. They don't like conflict. These are little children coping skills. Unfortunately, people go into their adult life with their little children coping skills. So, for instance, if you have parents who are nasty when you tell them the truth and you're 10 years old, and every time you tell the truth, they punish you even more, you're probably not going to tell them the truth anymore. So what do during your teenage years? You go off, you get drunk, you do stupid things, you start smoking pot, start doing this, start drinking, start having sex, you start buying rubbers, do whatever, go you get your birth control pills or whatever the hell you got to do, get your, STD, whatever you do it all during your teenage years. You never tell your parents. And guess what you do? Since you did that to your parents, when you get married and you get in a relationship, you start doing it to your partner. You don't tell them things. You have white lies. Why? Because that's how you learn to cope with getting power as a child, and so you start doing it as an adult. And so resentment starts to build for the person who receives you because you don't have the maturity to have evolved into an adult who values the truth. The sooner you do that, the better if you want to have a relationship. If you don't want to have a relationship and you just want to breed with whatever you can find, go for it. Often resentment can make it difficult to let go of your anger. But what you have to understand is if you are going to be a resentful person, you are not a person of integrity. You're a person that people have to tolerate as long as they have to deal with your ugly ass. And as soon as they can get away from you, even though they act like they like you, they really can't stand you because they're stuck with you and your stupid attitude and your idiot resentments. And then they want to escape you. Because number one, you have no integrity. If you want to go to a nursing home, 80% of what's in a nursing home is they're having their ass wiped by a nurse that never even knows them because nobody wants to show up to see them. A lot of these folks never manage their integrity. And that's why they're alone in their old life. So if you're going to be a resentful person, you're probably going to have somebody wiping your ass that you never knew as you get older because nobody's going to want to be around your ugly ass and all your nasty resentments because you're always collecting evidence of why not to trust someone. It's really important to understand that sometimes you find yourself hyper focusing on things, especially whenever you're confronted by the person or situation that caused them in the first place. You might even enrage or experience strong urges to seek revenge. What we really want to be, if you want to be mature and you want to be a good person, is you have to stop trying to be right. Shut the hell up. You're not right. You're not God. And your perception is not the only perception on the earth. So shut the hell up. The second thing is don't try to make everybody align with your stupid truth. If you want to be a good person, you got to get rid of those two. The next thing you want to do is try to be a person who understands other people. The next thing you want to be is a person who has compassion for where another person is coming from. It doesn't mean you agree with them. It doesn't mean you have to align with them. It doesn't mean they're right. What it does mean is you respect them as a human being enough to hear where they're coming from, be curious enough to understand where they're coming from, to understand them as a human being, and then to have compassion for what it must be like to be in their shoes. That is what it takes to be a human being. That's what it takes to be a person of integrity. If you are a Christian, that's what it takes to be Jesus like. Unfortunately, most people want to breed, they want to wake up with somebody, but they always want to be right, or they want you to align with what they want rather than everything else. And they want to put you in a corner and tell you what you really are compared to your idea of who you are. They want to define you. So if you want to be with people in a resentful relationship, welcome to misery for the rest of your life, unless they want to mature or go to therapy. But oftentimes that doesn't even work. Or they go to their 1 year seminar every week on a weekend and think that's going to fix everything. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come right back. We're going to talk about more tools to help fight resentment. So come back. Welcome back, everybody. We're talking about resentment in relationships. How to let go of resentment. Forgiveness can do wonders for your body. If you learn how to forgive, you have a lighter physical burden in your life. You have less to have to cope with. You have less negative emotional feelings. You have more propensity to live in the moment rather in the past or the future or your hypothetical forecasts. If you can locate the source of your resentment, if you're dealing with resentment, finding someone who helps you unpack these difficult emotions may be your best step forward. If you want to think about a therapist is like a person who is a water filter for a fountain. They help you filter out the nasty stuff so that you can have pure water. That is what a therapist does. They're not going to fix a problem. What they're trying to get you to do is understand that you got to get back to being more centered. That's what therapy is about. But You have to understand that the center is within yourself. And that means you have to be willing to make exploration within yourself rather than try to tell the therapist how wrong they are or how right you are, or make the therapist align with your own stupid bullshit that you only tell them partial truths so that they'll align with you. If you want to do therapy, you have to be an open book and you have to be willing to hear things you don't want to hear. And you have to be willing to want to get better. That is part of it. Now, these people who prescribe their spouse because I think you're crazy, you need a therapist, when they're usually the ones that need the therapist, but you need a therapist. So they send their spouse off to therapy and they pay their 200 and whatever dollars an hour for the therapist. So their spouse is prescribed to go to therapy. That's really going to solve things, to force someone into therapy. That's not what therapy does. If you want somebody to be in therapy, they need to be there because they want to change, not to please your ugly ass. Empathy and examining your expectations. You do a personality inventory of what's important to you. What do you need to support your healthy boundaries? What would it take for you to settle the score? Is it worth the cost of settling the score? Or are you looking for an apology? Are you looking for an explanation? Are you looking to make amends? Well, if you're going to approach somebody that you have resentment for, you have to look for the good in that person and you have to presume that they weren't out to destroy you or the world or hurt you, even if they had an affair or did something. You have to understand they were probably impulsive, they were probably selfish, and probably the relationship with you sucks. Or if it doesn't suck, there's probably an area that it sucks and it's a very lonely thing. Or they just cannot be loyal and maybe you shouldn't be with them in the first place. Acknowledging where you stand on the issue. What is, if you're going to be in this relationship, here's what I can tolerate, here's what I can't. And if I keep allowing you to do the thing that you keep doing that I say you can't do if I'm going to be in a relationship, maybe I better be willing to leave the relationship. Because it may be that you're not quite the right person for me, and maybe staying with you with the 50 kids that we've had probably is not a great example of what it is to be in a relationship. So unless you can get your act together and change and decide to have a little bit of willpower and a little bit of adult within your brain and within your behavior, we probably can't have a relationship. And that's called boundaries. And you need them. You also have to practice gratitude. People are so willing to criticize. Resentful people love to criticize every stupid thing they can pick out because their egotistical ass has to make themselves feel better by pointing out everybody else's flaws, including their children, until they finally destroy their will. So it's easy enough to say you're grateful on the surface. A lot of people will listen to this show and say, "Oh, I'm a grateful person. I do that all the time. Oh, I'm so perfect." They do it all the time. This is how much people blow smoke straight up their own ass. But when you're circling the drain of doubt and negativity, if you lean on people, places, and things that bring you peace and positivity, you might want to be grateful that those people have played a positive role in your life, even if they did it unintentionally. If you look at well intended people that are trying to do good things for others, serve others with something to make others' lives better, that's a place where you want to be grateful. Also, people that take responsibility for their life. That is where you want to be grateful because grateful people are very attractive people. People that are grateful are people that are so rare that people will make time to be around them just to see something different in this life than what they are surrounded by. People that are grateful stay married longer. People that are grateful have more relationships than others People that are grateful are better people because they look for the good in people. And if you did that with your kids, if you did that with your spouse, you might have a better life rather than sitting around collecting evidence of what a shitbag you marry and what a terrible person your children are. But there's so many people that I'm damaged from my poor little childhood, my traumatic life. Oh, so I'm going to project it and traumatize everybody else because of my traumatic life that I won't heal. I just want to make everybody else traumatized too. That's how dumb people are. In the event of oxygen masks are needed on an airplane, they always tell you to put your mask on first before trying to help anyone else. And so what that means is you have to fill your own tank before you fill other people's. People forget that. I'm just a giver. Well, if you're just a giver, fill your tank first. Learn how to fill your tank first, and that calls for boundaries. You know what? I gotta go get gas before I help you with your gas because if I don't have gas, I'm not going to be able to help you. But you have to learn how to fill your tank. You have to learn how to have self-esteem. So people that have self-love learn how to say no to things that hurt them, things that are not good for them. They set boundaries around those things. That is called self-esteem. If you want to have self-esteem, learn the term, here's what I can do, here's what I can't do, or learn the term yes or no. These are very important things in setting boundaries. It's okay to seek support because navigating resentment alone is not easy because you can't be objective. If you've been making a case about how horrible other people are your whole life, you're probably not going to be too fun to be around. And you probably do need some help because you're just blinking a real strong white light or red light saying, I'm a little messed up. I'm not easy to be with. I'm hard to be around. I don't like people. I'm scared of being hurt. And that's called mental illness. If you don't have any harbor for negative feelings that weigh you down, instead, you can allow yourself to feel them, express them, and move on. Because feelings can only last 3 minutes unless you add a reason why you feel that way. Now you've added another 3 minutes. That's why grieving is so overwhelming. Oh, I've lost this person. Okay, here's the first wave. Last 3 minutes. Yes, I'm sad, 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 sad. And then all of a sudden, oh, I've lost them and I'm never going to see them and I'm never going to have dinner with them and they're never going to come over to my house. Okay, now the next wave comes in stronger. Oh, they're never going to be doing this for me. Next wave comes in stronger than that. And that's because you have to have a reason to feel the way you feel. If you keep having to have a reason to feel the way you feel, you're going to keep building a tidal wave of emotion and it's going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. Now, if you're smart, you're going to go, wow, I'm feeling sad I lost this person. Yep, I'm sad, sad, sad. Yeah, boy, I'm really sad. Oh, sad, sad, sad. The emotion dies because you're not feeding it. If we argue too much, too many arguments about the same issues, called circular arguments, are a primary reason relationship resentment grows. Because people that have circular arguments are horrible, egotistical listeners. They're defensive little children who cannot listen to each other and understand each other. They're too busy pulling little facts and little details out about how wrong you are and how right I am and how much you've forgotten and all of the things you did not include in your argument. And they do this to so much delusional that they don't even know they're doing it. Often one partner is hearing their partner saying, but they are not actively listening. What they're listening for is their resentment. They're picking out what they want to hear and taking away what they don't want to hear. So they make important, oh, so you're controlling because you're telling me what to do. Now, There could be, hey, how was your day? What's going on? What are you feeling? Nobody cares about that. What I want to care about is, oh, you're telling me what to do. That's all I'm going to hear. And that's how resentful people listen. They listen through their resentful filter, and everything else goes away. The receivers know that, and they can't stand you. And if they're married to you, they have to tolerate you. So they're probably passive aggressively stuffing it away. And your children are like, I cannot wait to get out the door from this resentful turd that is my parent. And I hope I'm not like them. But I'll have to deal with them. So I'm going to act like they're a nice person until I finally get my freedom. And then I can move the hell away as far as away as I can get. Or I'm going to live with them and suck their retirement until they have none. You also want to keep finding faults in your partner if you're a resentful person. Resentment in a relationship grows even with the couple starts to focus on the faults and the flaws and the mistakes. If I want to pick out a human being's faults, flaws, and mistakes, I can do that all day long, every day of my life, because we all have such blatant flaws and mistakes that it's obvious, especially if you're married, what they are. And you can point them out. I can poke you in your sore spot all the time. That's really easy to do. And people that are married are lazy. So they sit around, well, I'm going to change your behavior by making you miserable. So I'm going to sit around and nag you about this stupid thing that you do all day long. Blah, 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 blah. Same old crap over and over and over again. Boy, that's going to buy you a great outcome. Passive aggressive behavior has to be identified. It's easy to lead resentment, in your relationship, but passive aggressive people don't express their resentment. What they do is they just sit around and act like a victim, or they sit around and ignore the conflict because they're too childish to be able to have the conflict. You know, if you have a partner that doesn't want to have sex, doesn't want to have affection, doesn't want to have a deep conversation, doesn't want to hear what your feelings are, doesn't want to spend time with you, there is a good chance that person is passive aggressively trying to avoid you because they resent the hell out of you. Now, you, as the receiver, probably want to go, what am I doing that makes them resent me? What am I doing that is sending signals out that I need to be resented? But instead, what most people do is, I'm going to attack you. You avoid me. You don't want to spend time with me. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do that. And if you got people like that, they're not going to solve the problem because they're not looking inward as to what they are doing to cause the passive aggressive behavior. They would rather fault the passive aggressive person and turn them into an ogre and a monster and a horrible person to the extent that they'll even do that in front of their children. If you don't know how to fix problems in a relationship, it's probably time to get some therapy. But every therapist is individual and every therapist is different. I'm very straightforward. So I go straight for the heart in a relationship to try to fix it because I don't believe in people spending their life in therapy. I think you can solve a whole lot of things if you got two people motivated to fix it. But if they're not motivated to fix it, you're probably going to be in therapy a long time. However, there's some therapists that work very slowly, and some people need that because they're pussies and they can't deal with conflict. So, if you want that, do that too. That's great if it works for you. But the deal is you need to find somebody that meets you where you're at, and that's what's most important. All right, that's our show. I want to thank everybody for listening. I love hearing from you. You can do that at libsyn, libsyn.com, Dr. Gary Bell's Absurd Psychology. Now remember, fatigue is caused by worry, anger, and resentment. Also, anger management is caused by an unmanaged stupidity. Also, gratitude is the remedy to resentment. Thanks for listening, everybody.